I sat at a long table surrounded by my own children, their spouses, my grandchildren, and felt as if I'd died years ago, and no one had bothered to bury me. They spoke over me, laughed around me, and toasted to everything I wasn't. My name was missing from every story, my presence, an inconvenience. But as the glasses clinked and their laughter echoed, something cold and deliberate began to take shape inside me. Not revenge in the dramatic sense, no. A quieter hunger. The need to take from them what they never earned. The right to call themselves good children. The moment I walked through the doors of Hannah's house that afternoon, I knew I was an afterthought. It wasn't anything obvious at first. The decorations were tasteful. The smell of baked ham and rosemary potatoes filled the air. The table was set with the kind of care Lydia used to take pride in. But the energy, it was wrong. Too polished, too rehearsed, too curated. Like they were staging a birthday, not hosting one. My ex-wife Lydia had turned 65 that week. Our children, Josh, Nina, Evan, and Hannah, had decided to throw a party. I hadn't been consulted, not asked to help, not even invited with warmth. Just a group text from Hannah the night before. Mom's birthday lunch tomorrow, 1 p.m. My place. That was it, like a corporate memo. I walked in with a small bouquet of sunflowers, Lydia's favorite, or they used to be. She stood near the fireplace in a soft gray shawl, her smile small but real, trembling in that way Parkinson's makes inevitable. She still had her grace, her quiet dignity, and for a moment it almost felt like the years hadn't broken us. That moment ended the second Josh appeared beside her. "Glad you made it, Dad," he said, clapping me on the back. It wasn't warmth. It was ownership. The kind of gesture you give to someone you're humoring. "Of course," I said, my voice steady. I scanned the room. Evan was adjusting the Bluetooth speaker, pretending not to see me. Nina was at the counter, arranging a photo-perfect shot of the cake. Hannah flitted between the oven and the table, the perfect hostess with her apron and her polite half-smile. No one asked me to sit. No one asked how I'd been. The grandchildren, half of them already taller than me, didn't even look up from their screens. I found a seat in the corner, near the wall, like a guest who'd shown up uninvited. Then came the toasts. Josh stood first, glass in hand, smile wide. "To Mom," he began, "the strongest woman we know, the reason any of us turned out decent." He chuckled. "Even when Dad bought that ridiculous red sports car back in the day, she still found a way to be patient. Manipulative gift though, right, Mom?" Laughter rippled around the table. Lydia smiled faintly, not sure why they were laughing. Manipulative. That word stuck in my chest. That car, that beautiful red convertible, had been her anniversary gift to me. She saved for months while working at the school. Josh had been 15 then, standing beside her at the dealership, grinning as I took the keys. They rewrote it. They took something that was once love and turned it into a punchline. Evan chimed in next, joking about Mom's patience through Dad's endless snoring. Nina rolled her eyes and added something about how Mom deserved sainthood for surviving that marriage. Even Hannah, who'd always been the peacemaker, laughed softly. Not once did anyone mention that I'd been the one bathing Lydia's trembling hands when her illness began. Not once did they mention I sold that same red car to pay for her early treatment. They wanted a version of the past where I was just the shadow in the corner. So I became it. I said nothing. Through the laughter, I caught Lydia's eyes. For a moment, confusion flickered there. I could tell she remembered differently. Maybe she even wanted to speak. But the tremor in her hand reached for her wine glass instead, and the moment passed. The grandkids ran off to the living room. The others shifted to small talk, jobs, house prices, some TV show I didn't watch. I sat quietly, my fork idle. Their laughter filled the room, but to me, it all sounded like static. I excused myself before dessert. No one noticed. I slipped my coat from the peg by the door and walked out into the cold air. The laughter followed me down the steps, muffled by the closing door. Outside, I realized I was still holding the sunflowers. I'd forgotten to give them to her. In the truck, I placed them on the passenger seat. The petals trembled slightly in the wind from the cracked window. I stared at them for a long moment before turning the key. The drive home was silent. No radio. No thoughts I wanted to touch too closely. Just a steady, dull ache. The kind that doesn't burn anymore because it's already charred everything it could. When I got home, I put the flowers in a jar and set them on the kitchen table. The house was still. The kind of quiet that presses on your chest. I stared at those flowers until the light outside faded into gray. And in that grayness, I made a quiet promise to myself. I would no longer be the background to their story, no longer the silent father, the disposable man. If they wanted to live in a world where I didn't exist, fine. But they would have to earn that comfort. They would have to earn everything, because I was done being forgotten. 2 days after Lydia's birthday party, I stood in the hallway of my house with a drill in one hand and a mounting bracket in the other. The drywall was cool beneath my fingertips. I hadn't touched this wall in years, but today it would stop being decoration. Today it would become a witness. I installed the Ring camera on the front door that morning. Then another, inside, pointed toward the main hallway. Not for security, not in the traditional sense. This was to record effort. This was to catch silence in the act. I'd heard my children talk in vague, noble tones about supporting mom, about being there when it matters. But I'd lived through the real hours, the midnight changes, the Parkinson's shakes that left Lydia's food cold because she couldn't lift her spoon, the way she sometimes forgot how to ask for help. They didn't know the weight of a week, but they would. By noon, I had the calendar up, 4 feet wide, corkboard backing, marked off in 1-hour blocks from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Each day stretched from edge to edge, each name written in bold black marker: Josh, Nina, Evan, Hannah. At the top, I wrote in capital letters, Care Log, Family Duty. Below that, I added rules, typed, laminated, and pinned. 12 hours of care per month. Voice and family decisions. Less than 12, silent vote. Care is defined by presence, not promises, not posts, not texts. Below the calendar, I installed a simple NFC tap-in system, a little black puck they could scan with their phones. Entry and exit. No tap, no log. And I made sure the logs uploaded to a Google Sheet I could access from anywhere. The hallway had become a machine, one built to measure love in minutes, not metaphors. That first week, I didn't say a word about it. I just texted them the link. This is the new schedule. Please log your hours. Josh responded with a thumbs up. Evan said, We'll try. Nina left it on read. Hannah hearted the message. I wasn't expecting applause. Thursday came, and I sat with Lydia at breakfast. Her hands trembled as she reached for her glass, and I helped her hold it steady. Do they know? She asked softly. They will, I replied. The board stayed mostly blank, except for Hannah. She logged 3 hours, a trip to the pharmacy, helped Lydia bathe, stayed for tea. She tapped in, tapped out, left a note. Her handwriting was still the same, blocky, clean. Saturday afternoon, I updated the group chat. Thank you, Hannah, for covering Nina's evening shift again. Nina replied a minute later, Wait, what shift? I sent a screenshot of the calendar. Her name was in red, 3 missed blocks, 0 hours, no tap-ins. She didn't respond again. Sunday dinner came. Josh arrived 20 minutes late with his kids, dropped them off, and left. "Just grabbing groceries," he said. He didn't return. His dinner plate sat on the entryway chair, covered in foil. Next to it, I left a sticky note. Absent, no show. I heard Lydia laugh from the living room when she saw it. By the end of the week, I had data. Cold, clear, time-stamped truth. Hannah, 9.5 hours. Evan, 2. Josh, 0. Nina, 0. I printed it, taped it to the calendar. They had built a mythology around themselves, about how much they gave, how busy they were, how complicated things had become. But the wall didn't care. It didn't measure intentions. It didn't record excuses. Only presence. That Sunday, I invited them all over. "Family meeting," I wrote. "No agenda, just show up." They came, begrudgingly. Josh sat with arms crossed. Nina was on her phone. Evan hovered in the corner like a man late to a test. Only Hannah seemed steady. I didn't offer drinks. I didn't offer smiles. Instead, I pointed to the board. "This," I said, "is the reality of who you've become." Nina laughed, dry. "Are you serious? A chore chart? What is this, kindergarten?" I said nothing. I walked to the fridge, opened the freezer, and pulled out a plastic bag filled with Lydia's medications. I held it up. "She needs these at noon every day. This week only Hannah was here to give them." Josh rubbed his face. "We have jobs, Dad. Kids. Lives. You know that. And yet you had time to plan a birthday party. Time to toast. Time to joke." No one spoke. "You all want the benefits of being children, but none of you want the cost." They didn't like that. I didn't care. I walked to the hallway, tapped my own name into the NFC sensor. It beeped, logged. Then I turned back to them. "You want to be part of this family? Prove it. With hours, not hashtags." That was when I saw the shift, not in their words, but in their posture. Nina stopped smiling. Josh glanced at the calendar like it had teeth. Evan, for once, met my eyes. They were starting to understand. This wasn't about revenge, not directly. It was about giving them the one thing they denied me for years: accountability. The hallway stayed quiet after they left, but not empty. The board filled slowly, honestly. A few hours here, one check-in there. Lydia sat on the couch that night, blanket tucked around her knees. "Do you think it'll change anything?" she asked. I watched the green bars fill in beside Hannah's name. "Yes," I said. "Not all of them, but enough." I sat beside her. The calendar didn't lie, and now neither could they. Lydia set the rule herself. It was a Thursday morning. She was sharper than usual, her tremor mild, her sentences unbroken by fog. We sat on the back porch, her blanket over her knees, the fall air crisp enough to keep the mosquitoes away. She watched the sun rise over the garden she once tended. I was halfway through my second cup of coffee when she said it, quiet but clear. "They don't get to decide things anymore unless they show up." I lowered the mug. "What do you mean?" She looked out at the withered tomato vines, the trellis half collapsed. "I mean, if they're not here for more than 12 hours a month, they don't get a say. In anything. No birthday plans, no holidays, no medical choices, no decisions about this house, nothing." I looked at her. She wasn't angry. She was tired, but in that resolved kind of way that doesn't shake under questioning. "They want the status without the sacrifice," she said. "I won't pretend anymore." So I typed it up, printed it, laminated it like a rule from a church bulletin, and pinned it directly under the calendar. Care, voice, 12 verified care hours per month. Family decision rights. Less than that, Listening only. No vote. No override. By noon, the group chat exploded. Josh, what the hell is this? Some kind of punishment? Nina, it's cruel. She's our mother, not a job. Evan, we should talk about this before it becomes some law. I replied with a single photo. The board, clean and factual. Josh, 0 hours. Nina, 1, partial from 3 weeks ago. Pharmacy pickup, unconfirmed. Evan, 3 hours, logged by Hannah. Hannah, 12.5 hours. Josh called me 10 minutes later. His voice was tight, measured. You're turning this into a competition. That's not what family is supposed to be. Family, I said slowly, is showing up. It's not sentimental theory. It's labor. And you're failing. He hung up. No goodbye. That evening, Nina showed up. No warning. Just pulled into the driveway in her leased SUV, heels clicking on the stone path. She carried a bouquet of pre-arranged flowers and a phone on a stabilizer. Just stopping in real quick, she chirped. I thought I could do a post, maybe with Mom for Alzheimer's Awareness Month. People love that angle. I met her at the door. Not your shift, I said. Her smile didn't falter. Not yet. It'll just be 5 minutes, I promise. Quick content, no pressure. Lydia's sleeping. She blinked. But I'm her daughter. I stepped outside, pulling the door shut behind me. And you have logged 1 hour in 3 months. Rules are rules. She scoffed. You're making this vindictive. No, I said. I'm making it verifiable. She didn't post anything. Drove off in silence. Later that night, I stood in the hallway, staring at the calendar. The board was starting to shift, not in volume, but in truth. The red marks next to Nina's name were clear. The zeros beside Josh's were impossible to justify. Evan hadn't responded to any messages all week. But Hannah, she was here again that Friday. Unlogged, unprompted. She arrived with soup, helped Lydia to the bathroom, read a few old letters aloud. I offered to add her hours. No need, she said. I'm not here for that. Still, I logged them. Because care counts, even when humility masks it. Sunday came. Josh showed up. No fanfare this time. No booming greetings. Just him and a 6-pack of sparkling water he left on the kitchen counter like an offering. He didn't even try to log hours. Just stood awkwardly in the living room. Can I talk to her? He asked. She's in bed. He looked toward the hallway, then back at me. You don't have to agree with the system, I said, but it's the only one we have. He didn't argue, just left the water and walked back out. It was starting to dawn on them. That proximity is not the same as presence, that having the same blood doesn't guarantee the same rights, that the time they were too busy to give, someone else already had. The following Wednesday, I received a message from Evan, a short one. Can I cover Sunday night? I'll do 6 to 10 p.m. I stared at it for a long moment, then replied, If you check in, yes. He showed up, quiet, carried a backpack of snacks and books, sat with Lydia while she slept, wrote his name on the board before he left. It was the smallest thing, but it mattered, because from that moment forward, every hour was no longer just a number. It was a vote, a weight in a world where every decision had been so lopsided for so long. I updated the board the next morning. Care, voice. Underneath it, I added a second line. Silence. No vote. Lydia watched me from the couch. I didn't think you'd go through with it, she said, voice thin. Why not? She gave a soft smile. Because you always used to shield them, even from their own neglect. I nodded. Not anymore. It started as a whisper, then became a record. Lydia had good days and bad days. Days when her thoughts sliced through the fog like a lighthouse, and others when her eyes seemed to drift somewhere just behind me. But on those clearer mornings, especially right after breakfast, when the meds kicked in and her hands steadied just enough to hold a teacup, her words had weight. One morning, she looked at me from across the kitchen table, her eyes sharp. "They say they love me," she said. "But where are they?" I didn't answer. I knew she wasn't asking me. That's when I got the idea. I went to the den, pulled out the small voice recorder I used to use for interviews when I still wrote for the local paper, cleaned off the old SD card, brought it back to the kitchen. "Would you mind," I asked her, "if I recorded you sometimes? Just your thoughts, for the family record." Lydia blinked, then nodded. "If they won't come hear it from me, maybe they'll hear it anyway." So we began. Every Wednesday morning, I'd set the recorder on the placemat beside her tea and let her speak, as long or short as she liked. She called it her care diary. The first entry was barely 2 minutes long. "This week," she said, her voice soft but steady, "Frank put me to bed 5 times. Hannah read me the letters from Dad. Josh was too busy. Nina promised she'd stop by, but she didn't. Evan never replied." She paused. You could hear the clink of her spoon against porcelain. "I know they love me," she added, "but I think they only love me when I'm quiet." We didn't play the recordings at first. I just saved them, cataloged them by date. But then one Sunday, the church asked if Lydia might like to give a short video message for the elder women's group. Something simple, a word of wisdom. Hannah helped me set it up. Just her phone on a stand, a blanket behind Lydia's chair to make the lighting soft. When she was done, I saw something in Hannah's face I hadn't seen in months. Not pity, not performance. Shame. Real, raw shame. The kind that doesn't need confrontation. Just truth. That gave me the final push. That Sunday afternoon, I gathered the grandkids in the living room, one by one, Emma, Luke, and little Ben. I gave each of them a small headphone set and pressed play on Lydia's second diary entry. "This week," her voice said gently, "Emma brought me her drawings. That made me smile. Luke said hello but didn't stay long. Ben was loud, but I like that. I like noise. It reminds me I'm not alone." There was a long pause. Then Lydia's voice continued, this time quieter. "I wish their parents stayed longer, but I don't blame them. I blame the clock. They always say, 'next time,' but next time never feels like now." Emma took off her headphones first. Her face was blotched red, eyes glossy. Luke sat still, like someone had placed a brick on his chest. Ben didn't understand all the words, but he looked confused, asking softly, "Why is Grandma sad?" I didn't answer. Instead, I took the USB copy and played it again at the next church circle. On the folding table in the community hall, between casseroles and store-bought cupcakes, Lydia's voice filled the space. Women paused mid-bite. Men folded their arms tightly. "This week, I ate dinner alone 3 times, she said. Frank tried to make me laugh. I laughed. Then I cried." It wasn't a long recording, barely 4 minutes. But those 4 minutes weighed more than a year's worth of empty phone calls. One of the deacons, a tall man named Curtis, shook his head and muttered, "Where the hell are her children?" By the time Josh showed up 2 weeks later, something had changed. The grandkids were polite, but distant. The church group, once full of warm hugs and cheek kisses, offered only nods and lowered eyes. Reputation is a fragile thing, and when truth walks in, silence starts to stink. Josh pulled me aside after dinner. "What's this I'm hearing about you playing recordings?" I kept my hand steady as I dried the dishes. "Lydia asked me to," I said. "She wanted to be heard." Josh's jaw tightened. "You made her sound abandoned." "She was." He exhaled hard. We're doing our best. I turned, finally meeting his eyes. You're doing the bare minimum and calling it love. He didn't reply, just grabbed his coat and walked out. The next morning, Lydia asked me to replay her newest entry before she slept. She listened to her own voice with the focus of someone rereading an old letter. I like hearing myself, she said after. It reminds me I'm still here. That night, I uploaded the new entries to a shared folder. I didn't tell the kids. I knew they'd find it eventually. I titled each file by date and truth. 2025-10-001. They forgot again. 2025-10-08. Only Hannah came 2025 and 10:15. Evan stayed until midnight. The truth was no longer buried in excuses. It was cataloged, shared, heard. Her voice, once the softest thing in the house, had become the sharpest tool in the drawer. Not for revenge, for record. And records don't lie. It was bound to happen. No one gives up power quietly, especially not those who've grown used to it without earning it. 2 weeks after Lydia's recordings began to circulate, quietly shared among the church group, the care staff, even a few old family friends, Josh texted me out of the blue. I'm bringing someone by. It's important. He didn't ask. He told. The knock came at 10:03 on a Saturday morning. Josh stood on the porch in a Patagonia vest, too clean for yard work, too casual for a formal visit. Next to him was a woman in a navy suit with pearl earrings and the expression of someone who thought empathy could be scheduled. "Dad, this is Meredith," he said. "She's a family systems therapist. We thought she might help. Mediate." Meredith offered a firm handshake and a soft voice. "Mr. Reeves, thank you for opening your home." I hadn't opened anything, but I stepped aside. We sat in the living room. Lydia was resting, her diary entries already recorded that week. Josh started in immediately. "This campaign you've built, the board, the recordings, it's creating tension. Family shouldn't be a battlefield." I didn't respond. I just stood up, walked to the hallway, and returned with a binder. I dropped it on the coffee table with a thud. Meredith jumped. Inside, every care log, every name, every date, every NFC check-in, signatures, notes. "Here," I said. "Family, documented." Meredith flipped through it, her lips pressed into a line. Josh kept going. "You're framing us as absent, but we have responsibilities. I run a team. Nina's got her business. Evan..." "Missed 14 scheduled shifts," I interrupted, tapping the chart. "Hannah covered 9 of them. I covered the rest." Meredith cleared her throat. "Mr. Reeves, it seems this approach, while thorough, might be perceived as punitive." I leaned back. "Truth isn't punitive. It's just uncomfortable when it's been ignored." She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Josh's voice rose. "So what? We need a punch card to be part of this family now?" "No," I said. "You need a conscience." Silence hung like fog. Then Lydia's voice drifted from the hallway, quiet but unmistakable. "Frank, who's here?" I stood. No one important. Josh flinched. Meredith packed her notebook quickly. Josh didn't look back when he left. That night I found a new post on Nina's page. A glossy photo of Lydia's old knitting chair with a caption, "Taking time for self-reflection. Family is complicated, but love wins." It got over 700 likes. A few church ladies commented supportive things. One even messaged me directly. "So glad Nina's stepping up." She wasn't. She hadn't been inside our house in 12 days. Her name on the board? Still all red. I screenshotted the post, saved it. Then I added a new rule under the calendar. No credit for performance, only presence. The next move came from Nina herself. She arrived with a stranger, a tall, camera-ready woman with perfect lighting instincts and a branded hoodie that said, "Breathe plus be bold." She carried a light ring and a GoPro. "We're doing a collab," Nina said brightly. "A day in the life, showing people what elder care really looks like. It's going to raise awareness." I didn't invite them in. "Lydia's not a prop," I said. Nina laughed nervously. "Dad, it's positive exposure. You want people to see what we do, right?" "You haven't done anything," she bristled. "That's not fair. Just because I don't log hours doesn't mean I don't care." "It means no one can prove you do." The blogger spoke up. "We can blur her face, add subtitles. It'll be tasteful." I shut the door. That night I reviewed the board. Josh, 1 hour this month. Evan, 4. Nina, still 0. Hannah, 16. She'd come by again that afternoon, brought Lydia a new scarf, helped her change the sheets, made her laugh. The next morning, the brand deal Nina had hinted at vanished. The influencer removed the post. Probably after seeing our calendar, Lydia's calendar, posted in a private group the church women ran. The caption was simple: "What love looks like when no one's watching." The image was honest. Lydia's handwriting, my notes, Hannah's initials, red blocks, green blocks, and 2 columns still empty. Later that week I received a package in the mail, no return address. Inside, a printed photo of the care board, laminated. Underneath, in unfamiliar handwriting, "Families need this. Thank you." I pinned it next to the main board. Josh didn't bring another therapist. Nina didn't bring another camera. But Evan started staying a little later, not logging all of it, not announcing himself, just staying. The resistance was waning. The metrics weren't. And Lydia, she noticed. She held my hand one evening, her grip weaker than before. "They tried to win the old way," she whispered. "But you brought receipts." I kissed her hand. "I didn't need to win," I said. "I just needed them to stop pretending they already had." I used to believe that covering for your children was part of love, that stepping in, silently, invisibly, was what good parents did. But over time, I learned that silence doesn't shield. It spoils. And what it spoils most is the truth. That lesson came into sharp focus one rainy Tuesday when Hannah texted me at 9:46 p.m. "I'm staying overnight. Evan said he can't make his shift." I replied with a simple, "Okay. Thank you." She'd already been there twice that week, cooking Lydia's favorite lentil stew, sitting beside her during the worst of the muscle spasms, washing her feet when they cramped at night. Evan was supposed to be here that night. He had claimed it, logged it in advance, even told Lydia the last time he visited, "I'll see you Tuesday night." But Hannah was here instead. Again. No complaints, no announcements, just doing what needed to be done. That morning I checked the board. Evan had 5 hours this month, all light shifts, mostly afternoons. Hannah was already at 21. 7 of those belonged to other people's broken promises. At breakfast, Lydia stirred her tea with a tremor. She looked toward the hallway, where the calendar hung, and said, almost to herself, "Don't shield them. Let their hours be their truth." She wasn't looking at me, but the message landed like a hammer. I called Mrs. Cole later that day, our care coordinator, the woman who helped us with scheduling and had access to the digital logs. "I need a change to the system," I told her. "From now on, no uncredited fill-ins, no anonymous coverage. Everyone gets what they logged, nothing more." She paused. "Are you sure? Some of the family's been depending on Hannah to cover." "I know," I said. "That's the problem." By evening, the new policy was live, a line of red text at the top of the board. No credit without presence. No substitution without registration. The backlash came before bedtime. Nina messaged the family group chat. "What if we ask someone to help and they agree? That should count." I replied, Then log it. Ask them to check in. Otherwise, it never happened. Josh chimed in an hour later. This is starting to feel like a punishment system. You're policing love. But it wasn't love they wanted measured. It was access. Access to decisions, to narratives, to appearances, without the burden of actual effort. By midweek, the red blocks multiplied. Evan missed 2 more shifts. Josh didn't even bother logging his Sunday visit. He'd arrived, dropped off groceries, and left before Lydia woke up. On Friday, I printed the log and left it on the kitchen table where Lydia could read it. She picked it up slowly, read through the names, the blanks, the filled hours. Then she set it down with care. "Hannah should get something for this," she said quietly. "Not just thanks." "She will," I promised. That night, Hannah and I sat on the porch while Lydia slept. I handed her a small envelope. "What's this?" she asked. "Just a receipt," I said, "for the hours no one else saw." Inside was a card, handwritten, with her total logged time to date. 52 hours, plus 14 unclaimed ones. "You can use these however you want," I told her. "When it comes time to decide anything, medical care, holidays, estate matters, these hours speak louder than bloodlines." She didn't cry, but she sat a little straighter. Meanwhile, Nina posted a filtered photo of her sipping matcha in a spa robe with the caption, "Self-care isn't selfish." That same morning, Lydia had needed someone to help her out of the bath. Hannah came. No photos, just clean towels and steady hands. Josh sent a group message on Sunday. "Mom needs 24/7 care. We should probably hire full-time help. Can we all chip in?" I replied, "You can chip in hours, or pay for the hours you're not giving. But you can't buy back the ones already missed." He didn't respond. Later that week, I met with Mrs. Cole again. I handed her a list, the names of 2 part-time aides we trusted. And then I showed her the updated shift sheet. "Going forward," I said, "any unclaimed hours will be covered by paid aides. But the invoices, they'll be broken down by name." She smiled. "And who pays?" "Those with the fewest hours, proportionally. No one rides free anymore." That Friday, Josh called. "Are you really making us pay for this?" "I'm making you responsible," I said. "You think money's the only way we can show we care?" "No," I replied. "I think it's the only thing you still understand." After we hung up, I walked to the calendar. Hannah, green; Evan, yellow; Josh and Nina, red. The truth was simple now. Not angry, not loud, just recorded. Every missed hour now belonged to someone else's kindness, not mine, not Lydia's. They could call it unfair, call it cold, call it anything they wanted, but they couldn't call it untrue. And in this house, truth finally mattered more than pretending. I called it the trial of love. It wasn't a legal trial. No courtrooms, no gavels, just folding chairs, a projector, and the old church hall where Lydia and I had renewed our vows for our 30th anniversary, back when the kids still believed in things like effort and memory. But this trial would be more honest than any ceremony we ever held. No flowers, no applause, just proof. I spent 3 weeks planning it, quietly, methodically. Hannah helped. I told her only the basics, that I was organizing a family event with purpose. She didn't ask for more. I booked the hall for a Sunday afternoon, sent out invitations like subpoenas. "You are invited to the Reeves family trial of love. Attendance is optional. Judgment is not." Some thought it was a joke. Josh texted a string of question marks. Nina called Hannah asking if it was some kind of intervention. Evan didn't reply, but I knew better than to chase them. The people who don't show up are the very reason the seats need to be set. I brought with me a suitcase. Inside, Every heirloom Lydia and I had saved across our 50 years together. The photo album from our first 10 years of marriage, corners soft with age. Lydia's grandmother's locket, still with a photo of her as a baby tucked inside. The folded flag from my military service, the one she kept in a cedar box under her bed for decades. The keys to my old woodworking shed, where I once built each of the kids their own rocking horse. A bundle of handwritten letters Lydia and I had exchanged during my deployment, everyone marked with a date and a pressed flower. I laid each item out on a long table at the front of the room, like exhibits in a trial. Next to them, I placed an easel with a poster. These do not go to the next of kin. They go to the ones who gave care. A few minutes before 2 p.m., Hannah arrived. Then Emma, her daughter, the only grandchild who ever sat beside Lydia long enough to hear her stories without needing a screen. Emma brought a notebook. Then Evan walked in. Alone. No fanfare. He looked tired, but not ashamed. Just present. Josh and Nina didn't come. I had expected that. Still, I'd printed their names and taped them to 2 empty chairs in the front row. Labels mattered, even on absence. Once we were seated, I turned on the projector. The lights dimmed. First, I showed the calendar, slide by slide, month by month, a slow scroll through red blocks and green squares, the check-ins, the missed shifts, the ratio of hours logged versus hours promised, no commentary, just facts. Then I played voice recordings, Lydia's voice, calm and unvarnished. This week, Frank made me laugh when my muscles locked. Hannah read me an old letter about sunflowers. Josh sent a text saying he was swamped. Nina said she'd bring tea, but I haven't seen her in a month. Evan hasn't come inside, but I see his car parked outside some nights. I looked at Evan. He lowered his eyes. I clicked off the projector. Silence followed. Thick, undisturbed. Then Lydia entered. Hannah helped her down the aisle in her wheelchair. Lydia looked smaller than ever, but sharp. Her eyes moved slowly over the items on the table, then to the audience. She didn't smile, just spoke. These things don't belong to the loudest. They belong to the most present. Her voice cracked. She nodded at me. I brought her the first item. She held up the photo album. "This goes to Hannah," she said. "You were there when they weren't. You reminded me who I used to be." Hannah's hand shook as she took it. Next, the locket. "To Emma. You did your homework beside my meds. You asked about the people in my stories." Emma cried. Quietly. She held the locket like a heartbeat. Then the flag. She looked at Evan. "You stayed outside. I noticed. You couldn't come in, but you were near. If you're willing to earn back your place, log 3 full months of care, this is yours." Evan nodded. Nothing performative, just firm. Then Lydia turned to the 2 empty chairs. "For Josh and Nina," she said, "I have envelopes." I handed them over. Inside, printouts of every missed shift, screenshots of ignored texts, a short letter written by Lydia in her clearest handwriting. 12 hours a month, for 3 months. Earn back your name at family events. Until then, no voice, no photos. You are present only through absence. No dramatics, no yelling, just facts. Afterward, we sat in a quiet circle. Lydia dozed. Hannah read one of the letters aloud. Evan helped stack the chairs. When I got home, I looked at the calendar again. The green was spreading, slowly, earnestly, not out of guilt, not out of obligation, but out of proof that love, real love, is what you show up for. It was the day before the trial of love when Mrs. Cole handed me the receipts. She met me on our porch, like always, clipboard in hand, sweater tucked under her arm. "I thought you'd want to see this," she said, slipping an envelope onto the table. Her expression was unreadable. equal parts impressed and perplexed. It's unusual. Inside were 5 printed invoices, each one dated over the last 2 months, all from a private care agency, all for night shifts, midnight to 4 a.m., sometimes longer, each one signed and paid by the same person, Evan Reeves. I read them twice before saying anything. "You're sure?" I asked. She nodded. I double-checked. He requested the invoices be sent to his office, paid via his company account. That didn't make sense. Evan hadn't logged those hours. Not one. On our board, his name was still half read, his presence spotty, his voice quiet at every family check-in. He'd been at the trial, accepted his condition from Lydia without argument, agreed to earn it. Not once did he mention this. "He asked for confidentiality," Mrs. Cole added. "Said he didn't want credit." I looked out over the yard. The leaves had turned early this year, orange and brittle, like they'd given up trying to hold on. "He's been paying to have someone else care for Lydia?" I asked. "No," she said. "Not just that. He's been doing it when no one was watching. He'd show up in the parking lot, meet the aide at the door, go over the checklist, then leave. Quiet. Always outside of scheduled hours." "Why?" She shrugged. "Guilt, maybe. Or maybe he just couldn't face being seen doing the right thing." After she left, I sat with the invoices. The care logs showed each shift. Meals prepped, medication administered, notes taken on Lydia's sleep patterns. He hadn't wanted credit, but he'd earned it. And now, as the board stood, he was invisible. So I made a decision. That evening, before the trial, I walked to the hallway, pulled down the marker, and updated the board. Evan. Pleasant 28 hours. Documented. Verified. Silent. I didn't text him. Didn't alert the group. Didn't make it a spectacle. Some things deserve to live without a hashtag. The next day, at the trial, when Lydia gave him the flag under the condition of 3 full months of care, I saw it on his face. He thought she didn't know, that no one did. But when she looked at him, there was something else in her eyes. Not gratitude, not absolution, recognition. The kind of look only a mother gives when her child returns in a form she no longer expected. Not as a hero, but as a human. That night, after the trial, Evan stayed late. He didn't say much, just helped fold chairs, carried Lydia to the car, tucked the photo album under Hannah's arm. Then he walked to the board himself, for the first time in weeks, and logged his initials beside one of the new shifts. No fanfare, just ER, 6P to 10P. The next morning, Lydia whispered to me while I fixed her tea. Evan came home. I didn't ask how she knew. The following Sunday, I received a short email from Evan. Subject line, "For the board." Inside, a PDF of additional receipts. 3 more shifts. 2 overnight, 1 weekend morning. Paid in full. No selfies, no family posts, just task logs, medication notes. A line that read, "Patient asked for rose jam, substituted with strawberry. Smiled." I updated the board again. By now, Evan had 36.5 hours logged. Quiet hours. Paid hours. Sacrificial, in the truest sense. The kind that cost you something. Time, pride, distance. I thought about the way Josh had barked about running a team, the way Nina performed compassion for her brand. And then I thought about Evan. Not showing up to be seen, just showing up. That week, the board changed again. Josh, 2. Nina, 0. Hannah, 64. Evan, 44. Lydia asked me that evening if I'd updated our living will. "Not yet," I said. She stared out the window. "You should. While my mind's still here." I nodded. "Soon." "Make sure the board matches the choices," she said. "I will." Because in our house, presence had become currency. And Evan, quietly, had begun paying his debts in full. No one applauded, no one announced it online, but the board, the only witness that mattered, turned another block green. It was strange, setting chairs for people I knew wouldn't come. Josh's name went on the first one, center row. Nina's just behind his. I made sure they had the best view, front and center for everything they chose to miss. I printed their names in bold black font and taped them to the backs of the chairs with quiet precision. Beside them, I laid 2 sealed envelopes. No one asked what was inside. The church hall smelled of wood polish and old hymnals. The room where we once celebrated baptisms, birthdays, anniversaries. It had become a courtroom of sorts. Not for judgment in the legal sense, but for reckoning, for memory. I stood by the long table we'd set at the front, the heirlooms spread across its surface like pieces of a shared past. The flag, the photo album, the locket, my workshop keys, the old letters tied with twine. The room was half full. Hannah sat with Emma, her hand resting on her daughter's shoulder. Evan took a seat near the back but moved forward without prompting. He carried no paper, no argument, just a quiet readiness. A few members of the church circle had come, not to gawk, but to witness. They'd heard Lydia's recordings. Some had visited during care shifts. Some had even covered hours when no one else would. I stepped to the front, turned on the projector, and let the screen glow white against the far wall. Then I pressed play. The first clip was Josh's voice, captured on voicemail. "Hey, can't make it today. Meetings ran long. Maybe this weekend." Next came Nina's. "Just totally slammed. I'll swing by next Thursday, promise." I let them play, one after another. Their words, preserved, not twisted, just revealed. Then I played Hannah's shift footage, brief clips from the Ring camera. Her helping Lydia to the bathroom, reading aloud on the porch, refilling meds, no narration, just truth. The room was still. Finally, I played Lydia's voice, her diary from 2 weeks ago. "Hannah helped me into the tub today. Said my hair looked like clouds. Evan stayed longer than his shift. Didn't say why. Just sat and watched the birds. Josh and Nina haven't written. I'm not angry. Just less surprised now." When the audio ended, I turned to the table. Lydia joined me, wheeled up by Hannah. She wore a simple shawl and a firm expression. She began with the album. "This," she said, lifting it gently, "goes to Hannah. You were there when they weren't. You reminded me who I was. You kept my past alive." Hannah didn't cry. Not immediately. She simply nodded and accepted it like something sacred. Next, the locket. "To Emma," Lydia said. "You did your homework beside my meds. You asked questions. You stayed curious. That's how love grows. By noticing." Emma rose slowly, taking the locket like it might break. Her eyes didn't leave Lydia's. Then she held the flag. Her hands trembled slightly. She looked at Evan. "This was your father's. He earned it. Now you have a chance to earn it too." She paused. "You've started. I've noticed. But the rest, the weight, comes with time." Evan stood, solemn. No performance, just presence. "I will," he said. She smiled. Finally, Lydia turned toward the empty chairs. "For Josh and Nina," she said, "there are no items, only these." I picked up the envelopes and walked to the chairs, placing one on each seat. Inside were printed logs of every missed shift, screenshots of ignored calls, and one short letter, handwritten by Lydia, painfully slow, her penmanship trembling but resolute. 12 hours a month, for 3 months, earn back your name at family events. Until then, no voice, no photos, You are present only through absence. The church members stirred, but no one spoke. They understood. The projector faded to black. The heirlooms were claimed. The empty chairs remained empty. Later, while Hannah and Evan helped clean up, a church elder came to me. "Never seen anything like that," he said. "Me neither," I replied. He nodded toward the envelopes. "Think they'll come around?" I thought about it. About the years of silence dressed up as duty, the birthdays filled with hollow gifts, the calls that only came when they needed something. "They might," I said, "but not for this." The trial wasn't designed to change them. It was built to change the story, to rewrite the history they kept revising. Love isn't declared, it's logged. And now, finally, our family had a ledger. I called the event Uninvited Toasts, held it at the same church hall 1 week after the trial of love. No catered food, no balloons, just a folding table, a donation jar, and a dozen neatly labeled boxes, each filled with old birthday gifts I'd received from the children who no longer had the right to call themselves good. Each item had a tag. The Mont Blanc pen Josh gave me the year he forgot Lydia's anniversary. Covers one missed shift. The leather watch Nina sent by courier, with a card she hadn't even signed herself. Covers 4 hours of care she never gave. A novelty mug from Evan, unopened, still in its packaging. Value, $12. Hours served, 0 at the time. I laid it all out like artifacts from a failed religion, tokens meant to replace time, sentiment used as substitute for presence. The proceeds, I announced, would go directly to the Lydia Reeves Relief Fund, a small but focused pool to help pay for care shifts for elderly people in our community who had no family, no children to show up, no calendar to log missed visits, just need. People came, not the ones who should have, but the ones who mattered. Church members, local volunteers, 2 retired nurses, Hannah, Emma, even Evan, quietly at the back, helping tally donations. I didn't make a speech. Instead, I pointed to a poster I'd hung on the far wall, a blown-up image of the care calendar. 3 months' worth, red blocks, green squares, real names, no lies. Someone offered $80 for the pen. Another bought the watch for $120, said her son was studying medicine and wouldn't become one of them. I didn't ask her to clarify. When the night ended, the jar held over $1,400. Every dollar was a rejection of performance, every bid a silent vote for truth. The next morning, I walked through our home, collecting the last remnants of the old narrative. Photos of Josh from high school with captions like, "Always dependable." Framed letters from Nina about being the caregiver from afar. I didn't destroy them, just remove them from display. They hadn't earned the story they wanted told. That afternoon, I took down the plaques from the empty chairs, the ones labeled Josh and Nina. I didn't throw them away, just boxed them, labeled pending redemption. And then quietly, the house began to shift. The calendar started to green, not entirely, not quickly, but honestly. Josh showed up one evening. Didn't say much. Brought dinner. Nothing extravagant, just stew and bread. He didn't log it, didn't make a speech, just sat beside Lydia while she watched a rerun of her favorite baking show. When he left, he squeezed my shoulder. No apology, just pressure. Enough to say, "I see it now." Nina arrived on a Wednesday with groceries, no makeup, no phone out. She helped clean out the fridge, wash the dishes, asked Lydia what tea she wanted, didn't take a photo, didn't post a story. That was new. Evan stayed the most, covered nights, stopped leaving early. Once I caught him reading one of the old letters Lydia and I had written each other. He didn't ask permission. I didn't stop him. He was earning it, not through drama, but ours, and the board, our truth teller, began to reflect it. Red blocks turned green. Missed time started to shrink, not erased, not forgotten, but counterbalanced. And I let it happen, not with celebration, not with trust restored, but with space. The house felt different, not repaired, just cleared of the rot. Lydia passed 3 months later, quietly, in her sleep. Hannah was with her. So was I. And Evan, on the night shift, sat in the hallway, hand resting on the arm of the chair he hadn't left all week. There was no big funeral. Lydia didn't want one. But I held one more gathering in the church hall. No program, just tea, soft music, and a blank calendar hung on the wall. At the top I wrote, "Time is love. Log yours well." The grandkids came. So did the neighbors, even one of the care aides who hadn't been scheduled. She said Lydia's quiet thank you notes had meant more than any check she'd ever received. I kept the board, still up, still active. Even after Lydia was gone, the kids kept logging hours. Josh visited once a week. Quiet, always bringing something small. Nina started organizing church meals, anonymously. Evan came just to sit. No more therapists, no influencers, no need. They had lost the right to be good children, but they were earning it back, not with words, but with hours. And I watched, not with forgiveness, but with something else. Closure. Because revenge, as I learned, doesn't always look like fury. Sometimes it looks like a calendar no one can rewrite.